And a very good Friday evening. Hey, it's John Hickey here in the weather office, giving you a up-to-date and up-to-speed look at what's to come here for your Saturday, because things are about to get, unfortunately, kind of messy around here. We've got a little bit of rain that's going to go over to snow, and it's going to pile up pretty quickly. Now, the system is moving fast enough that even though it's going to really snow pretty hard for at least a short while, the system itself moving along at such a great speed that it won't be at that intensity like all day long or anything like that. It's the kind of the saving grace from us not finding a real big March snowstorm is the fact that this thing is booking it. As always, we'll kind of bop back and forth between some maps and the totals, because I know that not everyone gets these into these live updates particularly fast, so I don't want you to miss out on the latest snowfall projections. So we'll kind of bounce back and forth between this and some of the other factors that are going along with the system. So we're going with a general 4 to 8 inch snowfall for much of northeastern Pennsylvania. As you get out into the central Susquehanna Valley, it's more like 2 to 5 inches, a little bit less moisture to work with for you, so looks like the totals will be just a little bit lower, but still impactful enough. We'll have some snow-covered roads tomorrow for basically morning right through at least the early part of the afternoon. Some of the rural roads that maybe don't get as much attention from the plow crews just by that nature of the fact that they're rural, they'll be a little bit slushy and snow covered a little longer. Also of note, temperatures are going to get real cold real fast too, so that heavy wet snow is going to freeze up pretty quick for your Saturday night. So where is this system right now? It's still kind of coming together. It's all part of this big dip in the jet stream flow, a big trough that's pushing its way east with a cold front. You can see some of the blues there on the map from Arkansas into northern Mississippi, western Tennessee, coming up to Kentucky too, and this is kind of all the moisture that's starting to stream up to the northeast and actually just developing across Mississippi right now. That's actually the low pressure wave that's going to be racing along this front. And that's what's going to give us a brief burst of some pretty heavy snow for a time tomorrow, but several hours of lighter snow basically on the either side of it. Just kind of a weather geek interesting note is the fact that this surface wave developing now here at 9 o'clock on your Friday evening over Mississippi, that thing's going to be out over Nova Scotia or even further away than that in 24 hours time. So unusually fast speed because it's caught up in this wicked jet stream flow, probably flying at like 1,500 miles or more in the course of 24 hours. So sometimes when you see something 1,500 miles away, it can take a couple of days to get to us. Not this time. This thing is moving and grooving right along. Looking at the temperatures too, before we get into the timing, you're just lived through a day there. It was well into the 50s and kind of hard to imagine sometimes. And no, I know we basically do this every year, but it gets so warm and you've got the spring fever and you think maybe the snow's behind us, but not so fast, my friends. You can already see that front starting to work its way through northwest Pennsylvania. We're already down to 31 in Erie, 30 in Franklin, 30 Bradford. That's a high elevation locale out there in northwest Pennsylvania, and an airport that's at like 2,000 feet of elevation. But you get the general gist. There's certainly some colder air that's pushing east. So say goodbye to the 50s for this weekend. It's going to be more like 20s and 30s for a lot of it. All right, let's pop you through future clouds and radar, give you the most up-to-date look at things here. So by midnight, could be a couple of raindrops out in central Pennsylvania, and as the colder air works in, we're going to quickly find that any kind of mix of rain and snow goes over to pure snow. This is a look at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's snowing pretty hard. Places like Renova, Mill Hall, up through Buttonwood, English Center, up through the Gaslight District of Wellsboro, Towanda, into Hot Bottom, East Rush heads up there, Susquehanna County. It's snowing pretty good there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Already starting to get into some decent snows in places like Carbondale and Factoryville and Tunkhannock. And much of Sullivan County blanketed in some of the heavier snows from Collie to Dewshore over to, let's say, the Hillsgrove area, into World's End State Park, Ricketts Glen State Park, some pretty heavy snow there early in the morning, and then you can take that back out to the central Susquehanna Valley too. It's snowing pretty hard at about 6. Now you can see where this kind of darker blue shading comes in as we get a little closer to 9, so that's some of the heavier snow that's starting to come in here to eastern Pennsylvania, and that's why we're thinking we're going to find some of those higher end totals. So while you're eating your Wheaties tomorrow morning, or maybe making some French toast, it'll be snowing particularly hard, especially across eastern Pennsylvania. So, continues to snow pretty good right through about lunchtime tomorrow, and then things are going to start to taper off from west to east. You can see some of the back edge already making it into far western fringes of our viewing area in far western Clinton County. Still some decent snows here in the east, but you can see how quickly that tapers off by mid-afternoon. We've gone from a heavy snow to kind of a light to steady snow here in the east, much lighter as you go west, and perhaps just a couple of flakes flying around by dinner time tomorrow evening, but certainly the bulk of the accumulating snow will be long wrapped up since then. So another way to kind of look at that would be your timing and intensity map. So some light rain, some light snow breaking out shortly after midnight out in central Pennsylvania. By the morning, though, you can see those dots going up from the steady snow to the heavy snow. So the heaviest looks to fall sometime around 7, 8 in the morning through about noon tomorrow, before things begin to taper off. And unlike the last system where we had a little bit of mixing at the end with some rain, not this go around, and like so many systems that we saw this year that maybe you saw a little snow before we had hours and hours of wintry mix, also not the case. Any mixing with rain or sleet would be very brief. This is mostly going to be a snowmaker for us. In terms of your impacts, so probably not surprising, when you expect the heaviest snow is probably when you expect the highest impacts out there. So basically tomorrow morning would be pretty tough to be out and about. Still some moderate level of impacts there through lunchtime and even into mid-afternoon, but thinking the highest will certainly be in the morning. If you plan on being out then and you're not a big fan of the winter driving conditions, I would recommend a little change of plans. Just want to check back in, of course, as always, some people kind of in and out of these live things. So here's just another look at those snowfall totals. Again, northeastern Pennsylvania blanketed in kind of this broad brushed 4 to 8 inches of snow, a little bit less out in the central Susquehanna Valley. Again, can't rule out too the Poconos. Could be some spots over 8 inches of snow, kind of highlighted it in a separate graphic, which we'll get here to in a moment. Some of the ski areas, Camelback, even down to Shawnee, Jack Frost, Big Boulder, and then straight up to Elk too. Some of these higher elevations, ski areas, and for those of you who live, say, above 1,800 feet or so, you could be looking at more like 7 to 11 inches of snow. But I think for the most part, 4 to 8 should do it in the 4 to 8 area, just like 2 to 5 should do it in the 2 to 5. We always have some surprises, but usually that has to do a lot with the elevation. Did touch on this during our 7 o'clock broadcast. Of course, Kurt, Joe, touching on it as well. But it's going to get real windy, all right, tomorrow afternoon and right into the night, too. We're thinking there'll be some gusts over 40 miles an hour. Wouldn't even be surprised if, we get a gust or two up around 50. So the combination of that heavy, wet snow and some strong and gusty wind leads to a pretty high likelihood of some power outages. Again, most of us looking at north of 3 inches of snow, and a fair amount of us probably looking at more than a half a foot. So that combination of the wind and that heavy snow is going to lead to some issues. So, if you live in a spot that's maybe prone to power outages, hopefully you've planned ahead. We started showing this graphic yesterday to give you a heads up. Maybe you got your generators gassed up, but kind of the good news here is when you get some snow and the cold like we have this weekend, you don't have to worry about your food spoiling. You just throw it out in the snow and keep it refrigerated that way. And temperatures pretty much all weekend, once officially, tomorrow will be like 40 degrees because it's going to be about 40 at midnight, but the rest of the the daylight hours, Saturday, Sunday, likely below freezing a lot of the time. So stuff would stay cold in the event that you have to leave it outdoors. Mention this too, that temperatures are going to be falling pretty quick through the day tomorrow. I mean, check it out here. Early in the morning, pre-dawn, up around 40 degrees. But look how quickly those temperatures cool. We're in the mid-20s by the mid part of tomorrow morning. So that's why we're quickly going to see that change over to snow. But also notice by the afternoon we're down to the teens. So that heavy wet snow it's also going to freeze too. So not overly concerned with things like blowing and drifting snow, mostly because it's going to be pretty pasty and then it's just going to kind of get frozen up. So it's going to be tough to move around too. So try to do your shoveling, as it's falling during the day tomorrow. Thinking once we get to the afternoon, anything that's still down, especially tomorrow night, it's going to be frozen there for a bit. The good news is by next week, by as soon as Monday, we're looking at temperatures up around 50. So it's a brief glacier on your driveway, but a glacier nonetheless. Tomorrow, a great day for all of our area resorts. Check out the conditions. I mean, we're looking at powder for tomorrow with the snow coming down. And you can see the forecast projected totals there, generally north of a half a foot for everybody. Wouldn't be surprised if we get close to a foot in some cases, but generally speaking, should stay under a foot of snow. Of course, the potential fly in that ointment would be, if one of these bands sets up maybe a little bit longer than expected, especially over the Poconos, then sure, maybe a little bit over a half a foot of snow could be expected. But just to kind of bounce back to that snow accumulation map, again, it's a general 4 to 8 inch snowfall for a lot of northeastern Pennsylvania. Now that extends down into the southern Poconos and portions of the coal region too, the higher elevations, places like McAdoo. You're in our 4 to 8 inch zone. Into Summit Hill and Jim Thorpe, Lehighton, you're in our 4 to 8 inch zone. Same for you in Weatherly. Check out Hazleton, obviously, in that as well. Some of the spots maybe not looking at quite as much. Places like Selinsgrove and Shamokin Dam and Sunbury, you're probably in that more like 2 to 5 inch band. Mifflinburg to Mifflinville, looking at some of the lower snowfall totals. Middleburg in that 2 to 5 inch kind of a zone there. Same for you out again, Mill Hall, Lock Haven, Jersey Shore, probably in that 2 to 5 inch zone. But you head northeast, again, the elevations and across much of northeastern Pennsylvania, more like a 4 to 8 inch snowfall can be expected. So one last map, and then we'll kind of wrap things up for you. Here's just kind of a general timeline. So the rain and snow is set to begin here pretty shortly in the next couple of hours. We'll see that quick transition from rain to snow happen from west to east. The heaviest snow is expected from early tomorrow morning through early afternoon, and then some of those final flakes flying somewhere between about 3 and 6 for tomorrow. Now, we do have some new data coming in here tonight. We're going to be reviewing that. So even though you just got a pretty comprehensive update here on the web and social media, I do invite you to come back for 10 and 11. I'll be looking over some new stuff and we'll make any necessary tweaks that we have to. Also, tomorrow morning, Ryan Lecky's going to be out on the road for us, giving you a live conditions report from what's going on about town. Valerie's in tomorrow morning with a fresh look at the forecast too. Newswatch 16 this morning starts at 5 o'clock as it always does with Andy Palumbo and Valerie Smock, and they'll see you then. We'll see you tonight on WNEP2 at 10 and again over on WNEP at 11 o'clock tonight with the latest weather updates, and we'll be sure to see you then. So thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Hopefully you have a great safe night and a great weekend too. Take care.